Yeah, yeah. I mean, just have it in my. No, that's fine, perfectly.
Test 1, 2, 3.
So. So.
Everybody, we're just waiting on one more commission member. He's a couple minutes out, so we should get started in the next 5 minutes or so. And get going. All right, you want to turn your mics on, everybody, and make sure you speak into them when you talk.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening. We are Going to call to order this meeting of the Providence City Plan Commission. It is Tuesday, May 16th. It is 4:56 p.m. We're sorry about the late start, but we do need a quorum. So we're going to take a roll call. We're going to start off going around. This person announce your name, signifying your attendance.
Noel Sanchez.
Will Sherry. Miguel Casada, and my apologies for being the one to hold up the meeting.
No problem. You're here.
Cheyenne Manager, Car DPD staff.
Bob Azar, DPD staff.
Sharon Gunner, legal counsel.
And I'm Michael Gazdaco, chair. So the first thing that we will do is the approval of the minutes from the April 18th, 2023 meeting. You all should have received them in advance, and hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at them. I reviewed them. I didn't see any errors or omissions. If anyone has any edits, they should say so now, or we would accept a motion to approve the minutes from the April 18th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 18th meetings.
Wonderful. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. We have a second. We'll just do aye or nay.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the minutes carry. We'll go right into the director's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. A couple things to bring up today. First, I want to say that our longstanding member, Harry Bilodeau, has resigned from the commission after about 22 years of service. So I just want to recognize for the record his contribution to the commission and to the city, and we wish him well. We have a new member, the mayor's designee, Will Sherry is here. Thank you for joining us tonight. Finally, I just want to mention that we are just about to launch officially the comprehensive planning process. Look for a save the date email coming out soon. It's going to be early June. We are going to do a press conference, and then we're going to have a citywide launch event. So this is, we're still sort of nailing down the details, but it looks like it's going to be in the first week of June. And then following that, there will be multiple opportunities for community engagement in person and online. And we will be updating you at each meeting as we move through this, and I suspect we will probably do some special meetings about the comprehensive plan for the City Plan Commission to sort of work through the content as it's developed. So we have that to look forward to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Azar. Before we kick off the meeting officially, we do have a few changes to the agenda. We have item 4 has officially requested to withdraw. That's Johnson and Wales University. So we will not be hearing that agenda item this evening. And then we have a couple of changes to the order. We're going to take them in the following order. We're going to hear agenda item number 1, number 3, then go back to number 2. Item 4 was withdrawn. Then we're going to hear items 6, 5, and 7 remains as 7. So just a slight change. So if you get lost, we'll be naming the agenda item number, the address of the project as we introduce each item. But just a heads up that there is a slight order change to the agenda that was posted. So with that, let's get right into the first agenda item. It is agenda item number 1, case number 21-018 MI. It's 18 Marcello and 25 Piedmont Street. Looks like the applicant is requesting a second 1-year extension.
Right over there.
Good evening.
I'm gonna commit to that. My name is Andrew Blade. I'm here on behalf of the applicant GP3 Realty. We're requesting an additional extension of 1 year for our preliminary plan approval. In this situation, we had 6 conditions. We've been working and actually making progress towards those conditions. We were able to get the administrative subdivision completed and it is now recorded. That was the second condition. Condition 4 required us to receive a zone change from the city council, and that's really what took up a majority portion of the last year. During those extensions, obviously getting before the ordinance committee is always a challenge. We're working on the final remaining conditions, one of which is working with, on canopy coverage. My clients talked to or reached out to the city forester about that as well. We anticipate all the conditions will be met relatively shortly, and that we'll be able to come before the board on a small matter. And I believe that's for a condition, a design condition. That was the first condition, this application or its approval. And then because final plan is delegated to the staff, we expect to be able to proceed towards that within the next month or so.
Okay. All right, commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Is the name change for the development?
I noticed that as well. The agenda notes the applicant as Piedmont Properties. My apologies. The applicant on the approval is listed as GP3 Realty and the owner is Piedmont Properties.
That doesn't create any issues.
I don't think it should.
Okay. So you think you'll be wrapped up in short order?
Yeah, we're working towards that right now. I believe we should be on our way.
All right. Any other questions from?
Will they be back here or are they all ready?
Well, they said they're coming back for something design related.
It was a mural.
Yeah.
There was a mural. situation.
There's a blank wall issue. You requested
Right,
that
yeah, I remember.
they come back prior to getting final sign off.
Okay.
So
Great. Well, then, as far as I'm concerned, we'll look forward to seeing you back. With all of your conditions met. Do we need public comment on this one?
no,
Okay.
you just need a motion and a vote.
All right. If there's anyone who would care to entertain a motion on this,
Make a motion that the applicant's extension be approved for another year.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll go around. Noel? Aye. Will?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck. We look forward to seeing you back. All right, again, we are jumping to agenda item number 3 next, which is a minor subdivision. It's case number 23-027 MI. It's for 21 Westmore Street. And Julian, would you like to tee this one up for us?
Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman. And this is a request to subdivide a lot that measures about 10,200 square feet into 2 lots of 5,012 and 5,187 square feet. And you will see that based on the placement of the lot, this subdivision will result in a bit of an irregularly created lot in order to meet the conditions for lot width as well as minimum lot size. That being a lot width of 50 feet and a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet. And also, given that the applicant's representative is here, I would ask them to talk about the condition of the lot width and how they would intend to meet that on the final plan, given that the lot width has to be measured from the point of the minimum front yard setback. So, yeah, the applicant's here and they can tell us more about it.
Thank you. Chairman Dylan Conley on behalf of the applicant. There are with one site condition, there is a shed in the back corner. We will be tearing that down. So any approval subject to us removing that shed is perfectly fine with us. Additionally, there are 2 options. Our 50-foot width needs to be measured at approximately 13 feet back. We can either increase the angle of that lot line so that you have a little bit more than 50 feet on the frontage. Or we can do a rectangle, a right angle jog at that 13-foot mark. Either is fine with us. There's a separate entryway on the right. You can see the proposed asphalt driveway that slides it over. If the board has any preference on whether we angle it or we have sort of the right angle with another jog, we're fine with it either way. Also, generally, does the board prefer this, what is truly a Picasso, or seeking some additional relief or having 2 square lots? Those are the sorts of things just on this project and other projects going forward. If there's a preference, we would be very open to taking the guidance from the board. But for now, I think I give credit to the surveyor for figuring out how to get this done all to standard.
Picasso is an accurate description. Mr. Ava, would you like to chime in on
Yeah,
that?
just quickly, the zoning ordinance requires at least 5,000 square feet of lot area in this zone, and it requires at least 50 feet of lot width in this zone, and lot width is measured at the building setback, not just at the street. So they've actually done a really good job of getting 2 lots that are compliant in terms of lot area. And given the fact that there's an existing house that's not sort of off to the side, they have to meet a 10-foot setback because the lot is at least 70 feet wide. So, you know, like I said, they've done a really good job of this. The zoning ordinance absolutely allows them to do this. The one condition that we sort of identified very late in the game is that this 50 feet of width is not just at the frontage, but it's at the setback line, which is a little bit back. It's not quite as far back as the house. So it really doesn't matter. I'd say we should just leave it up to the applicants to kind of redraw the location of this line in the way that works for them, and leave it at that.
The setback.
The setback is based on the average of the depth of setback on houses on either side of this. And we did a quick calculation. We figured that the average setback is about 18.5 feet, but you're allowed to decrease that by up to 5 feet. So what we're saying is this lot A has to be 50 feet wide at 13.5 feet back from the street. And the way they're showing it now, it's just shy of that. So if they can just adjust this little angled line slightly, then they should be fine.
It's gonna create a pretty narrow house.
Well, you're gonna have,
On the deep lot.
on the new lot, you're gonna have, you've got 120 feet total. So if I believe you're at, if you're at 70 and 50, the lot at its narrowest is in the realm of 40 feet wide, which is actually not all that uncharacteristic of lots in Providence. 40 feet is, it's narrower than 50, but we have many lots that are much narrower than that.
I guess my only thought in response to the attorney's question was, I think that making this as more square as possible is better because then the area that's 20 feet wide by 50 feet deep kind of unusable for a lot of things. Be a yard, I think. People on the top.
Yeah, that's,
I understand why it's done.
yeah.
More to meet the minimum lot area.
Yeah. Will, Miguel, do you have any other questions of the
Nothing.
So I guess before we open this up to public comment, the recommendations that are listed, I would propose that they be redrawn as the first condition is the shed to be removed prior to final plan approval. Number 2, the plan shall be modified to meet the lot width requirements of zoning. However, the applicant chooses to do so. And then 3 would be number 1, the validity of preliminary plan should be extended for 1 year, and 4, final plan approval delegated to DPD staff. Do you want to read the rest of the staff reports there before we open this up to public
Or
comment?
if, just real quick, as we've talked about, this area is intended for single-family residential development by the comp plan, and this subdivision will result in lots that conform to that land use designation. And as we've seen, the applicant has configured the subdivision in a way to meet the minimum lot size as well as the lot width requirements. We don't force a negative environmental impact. These will be buildable lots, and street access, vehicular and pedestrian will be provided from Westmore Street. So based on that, we recommend that you vote to approve the preliminary plan with a condition that the validity be extended to 1 year from the date of recording of the approval letter. And in addition, the conditions that the shed be removed and that the plan be modified to meet the lot width requirement. And finally, we ask that final plan approval be delegated to DPD staff.
Okay, great. This is a public hearing, so at this time, we will open up public comment. If you are here to speak on this issue. Again, we're agenda item number 3, 21 Westmore Street. Please, if you've signed in, I don't know if we have a sign-in sheet. I think there are people still signing in. If there's anyone here, please just raise your hand. And then if you're joining us from the virtual world, please raise your virtual hand, or if you're calling in, press *9. All right.
No hands.
All right, and seeing none, we're going to close the public comment portion of this agenda item. Now on to deliberations and decisions. I don't really have a strong opinion how the lot has been figured. I just want to make sure it meets the intent. I do think there are certain circumstances where it might be beneficial to ask for relief as opposed to making a squirrely lot line, but yeah, they've been very creative in this, and obviously the intent is to have a conforming subdivision, so I appreciate that as well.
So question for you, Bob, primarily, if they apply for relief from setback, could they do a 5-foot setback on that line? Would it be easy to do that or not? 5-foot setback and make a lot of it wider and make the jog a little bit palatable.
Well, they could certainly do that, but that would mean they'd have to apply to the zoning board. It would be, four figures of application fee and consultants and things like that. So this is a compliant, yeah, this
Much
is
less cumbersome.
yeah, I think this is a compliant subdivision, notwithstanding that this will be one of those, when you look at the map, someone's going to say there's a story behind this, and there are lots of those.
It's not the first one we've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, looking at it as a compliant subdivision, I think.
So moved.
Yeah. So moved would carry the motion. Based on the staff report and testimony.
So it's gonna be an extra condition, right? You said something about removal of the shed.
Two extra
Right.
conditions, yeah.
The shed be removed and that subdivision be modified to meet the lot width requirement.
So I move to approve the preliminary plan, according to today's discussion, with the following conditions. That the preliminary plan be extended for 1 year from date of recording. Final plan approval to be delegated to DPD staff. The removal of the shed, and the modification be applied.
I think that covers it. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right. Wonderful. We'll go around and we have a fully formed motion on the table. We'll do voice votes. Noel. Aye. Will.
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, moving back on the agenda to agenda item number 2, This is a city council referral. It's referral number 3545, the rezoning of 1051 to 1061 Chalkstone Avenue.
Thanks, Commissioners. This is a request to rezone the subject lots from C1 to C2. They're currently occupied by an auto business, which is not permitted in the C2 zone, but it is permitted by right. I'm sorry, it is permitted in the C2 zone with a special use permit. And the applicant is seeking the change in order to be able to allow for expansion on their business. And so it should be known that any changes will require a special use permit under the C2 zone. So the applicant can tell us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Garrett here on behalf of the applicant, and the owner, Richard Brasso, who is here with me. So we had talked before about, walking to school in the snow and going by different places that we know, you recall? So
Just about every meeting.
every meeting. So when I went from Biltmore Avenue to Blessed Sacrament School. I walked by this establishment every time. Rudy Motors, Petterwood Motors. So it's certainly non-conforming. It's been there at least 1923. Well.
100 years.
I started talking about it. In any event,
That's only 100 years ago.
sales and service of automobiles has been, I guess it's 1923. The building is from 1920. Wow. In any event, Richard has owned it for several years. Yeah. 30 years. So it's non-conforming. It's in a C1 zone right now, so it's non-conforming. So essentially, he can't do much expansion. He can't do any expansion at all without going to the zoning board, and expansion of a non-conforming use is very difficult. So the thought is, I originally thought that if we had this in the C3 zone, he could do it by right. However, that allows more heavy industrial, heavy commercial uses. So essentially, we've said that we're going to do it by C2, which would legalize the existing use, but allow any expansion by a special use permit. So it needs to go back before the zoning board for special use permit with respect to whatever it is he plans there to ensure that it's consistent with the other. This only allows him to do that. So, with respect to I'd be there for Richard. If you have any questions.
So this is a less intrusive than your original contemplation of C3. But
It is for two
less
reasons.
intensive.
It is for two reasons, Mr. Chairman. First of all, it's less intensive with respect to any uses that are allowed there. And second of all, C3 would not have to go back, C3 would not have to go back for the zoning.
It'd be just by right.
It would be by right.
This is by right with special use permit.
Correct.
Okay, understood. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the other?
We're talking about the law next to the. So I bought. Not the lot where the building is actually.
The building is.
No, the building is included. That's 447. 477, that's correct, sorry. It's on the application, the petition. There's lots 164, 65, 166, 436, and 447, and 477.
Okay. I'll say that.
No, that's fine.
The staff report doesn't mention
Oh, you're right.
47, but the petition does. Well, it's not that it's not- it's okay.
I see it over here.
The petition is right.
Yeah, the petition is correct and the applicant is correct and it's a referral. So I think we don't have any issues in here. Other questions of the applicant before we hear the staff report and open up the public comment? Okay. All right, Cheyenne, take it away.
Thanks, and commissioners, as listed in our staff report, this is an area where, according to the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, you have neighborhood commercial as well as residential uses in proximity. And so we find that this rezoning to C2, which would require a special use permit for any expansion, would be in conformance with that land use pattern that you see in the comp plan. And so based on that, we recommend that you make a positive recommendation to the city council, finding the change to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan and purposes of zoning.
With that, we will open this up to public comment. Something I neglected to say at the first opening of public comment was that we have a lengthy agenda this evening. So we are going to set a time limit for public comment at 2 minutes per person. We received a lot of advance material. So if it's something that has already been stated prior to the meeting, know that that is already a part of the record. We'll get to it when we get to these agenda items that have comment that has come in prior to the meeting. But I do want to state that there is a 2 minute per person time limit on comments related to any agenda items that we are hearing this evening, just to keep order here and keep our agenda moving along. So with that, we will open up public comment on agenda item number 2. Again, rezoning of 1051 to 1061 Chalkstone Ave. If you're here in the audience, please raise your hand. And if you're at home, raise your virtual hand in the bottom middle portion of your screen, or press *9 if you're calling in. All right, we're not seeing any. So with that, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. Commissioners, I think this is a reasonable request, an existing non-conforming use, trying to bring it up into conformance with some safeguards on the uses by still requiring special use permits for additions, modifications, etc. I think it'd be in good planning practice to bring this into conformance with current zoning.
Yeah, I agree.
So with that, we'd entertain a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to make a positive recommendation to city council to approve the proposed change as listed in.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, great. We'll go around. Noel?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck at city council. All right, again, agenda item number 4 has been withdrawn. We don't need to vote on that, do we?
No.
Okay. So we're moving right along to agenda item number 6. Again, a change in order. So we're moving to agenda item number 6, which is case number 23-029 MA 371 Pine Street. The applicant is Crossroads, Rhode Island. And we have the pleasure of having our former chair, Christine West, in the building. Good evening, Christine. Joanne, would you like to tee up this application?
Sure, and commissioners, this is a request to combine master and preliminary plan approval to construct a 5-story mixed-use building with commercial space on the ground floor and a total of 35 units, 35 housing units on the upper story. And they also will be providing a landscape courtyard with other amenities. And so just a little bit about this building. There is a building that is currently occupying the subject lot that will be demolished, and this building will be built on that site. And the applicant, since they are requesting to combine master and preliminary plan approval, will be going through all the submission requirements, as well as talking about conformance of the project with zoning. So I guess the applicant can take it over there.
Attorney Gary.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Garrity on behalf of the applicant, Crossroads, Rhode Island. Let me say first for the record that the affidavit of notice was provided to Troyan before the meeting, so we complied with that requirement. Let me just say that this is a compliant project. Whenever I talk to my clients before coming to the board, I said, make it compliant. And it'll be a lot easier. fully compliant. And I thank the staff, Bob and Troyan and Alexis, for helping us to make it compliant. So this is an apartment building that's in the appropriate location from a zoning perspective, from a comprehensive plan perspective, and it's built fully in compliance with all your regulations. So that's where we start. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, your former chair, Christine West, is the architect of the project. I think not only is she an excellent architect, but she is a Providence person. And so she has chaired this board for some time, as you know, and therefore is very familiar with your requirements. And not only is it an excellent project from a building perspective, but conform with the requirements of the ordinance, to be consistent with the land development regulations that you have. So let me just turn it over to Christine, do it, and then Michelle Wilcox, the president of Crossroads, was here to talk about the mission of Crossroads and about the community involvement that we've had with respect to this project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor and a privilege. I know you hear that a lot, but it's bittersweet being back here. I do miss you and I really appreciate all your service. I know it's not easy. You have some long hours, you have some difficult decisions, but we're going to make this one easy for you. We're incredibly proud of our work here with Crossroads, Rhode Island, to develop this apartment building. I'm going to give you the brief technical overviews. We're going to spare you a super lengthy presentation, but I do need to clarify for the record many aspects of the design that are under your purview. First, let's orient everybody to the location. So the parcel outlined in red is the existing building that's at the corner of Pine Street and Stewart Street. In this image, north is up. We're going to show you the plan as north is down. But what we're looking at here, it's basically in a sea of parking lots. Before the highway was built, this was part of the jewelry district. The zip code is still 02903. It's really kind of at the fringe of a lot of things happening between downtown, between the West End, between the upper South Providence. So our intent here is to take down the existing building. We absolutely looked at keeping it. It was much more expensive to keep the existing structure. Without further ado, I'm just going to go to the plan here. I want to point out a couple things. So again, it's in 5 stories, mixed use new construction. The mixed use comes from the office and community space on the ground floor. We also have community space on the upper floor, which I'll show you in a moment. But much of the ground floor is offices for Crossroads, Rhode Island, which will continue to maintain and operate the building. There's a very large tenant office space. And then we have a community room that we'll show some images for. And then one of the most significant things, other than there being a new building, that we're trying to do with this site is really take full advantage of the transit-oriented development zone that was approved as part of the 2014 zoning change, which essentially waives some of the requirements that it might in other zones in order to encourage high-density development, transit-oriented is in the name, and a greener solution, basically. So we're very, very close to one of the busiest, if not the busiest bus line in the state, the R line. We have no requirements for parking, although I will mention there is a parking lot that Crossroads owns across the street. I can mention that again later. But what we're doing with this back area is creating a really beautiful, lush garden for the residents and for the residents only. It's not a public park. It's fully enclosed with a fully private fence. And again, we'll show you some images there. But we're taking a sea of asphalt and really trying to green it up, including many large trees, which will be a positive for the neighborhood. I also want to point out that this building is going to replace an emergency shelter for the homeless that was approved with a special use permit during the pandemic. So that use will go away. The other uses that this building has seen include a daycare and office. So it has never been really residential, but it is a previously developed site. So one of the other things I wanted to point out while we're here, I'm going to go through a number of features that are by right. And essentially, we've worked pretty hard to make sure that we are asking for no exceptions, no dimensional relief, no variances whatsoever. We want to make this as clean and easy for you as possible. One of the things that I want to point out, there's an enclosed service courtyard, which would contain the transformer and the dumpsters to the north, which is now paved down. Again, we want our fencing to comply perfectly with the ordinance, and we have a little bit of detail on that to show you. We have enclosed bicycle spaces for the residents to use, which again are secure, they're private, they're behind a wall. And everything about this the sight lines and the space is really designed for safety. Michelle Wilcox is going to go through some of those later. So this is the upper floor plan, just very quickly. Again, it's apartments, primarily 1 bedroom and studios. These are full apartments with full bathrooms, kitchens, living rooms. These are no different from any other apartment that you may approve. Okay. So this slide, this image is slightly out of date. I do want to point out, this is not part of the official submission, but I wanted to give you is the general character of the architecture and finishes. Everybody's curious. We're trying to be very responsible and thrifty with our use of materials. We want this to be an elegant building, quiet, but fit in with the neighborhood, yet have its own identity. So again, trying to be quiet, but not boring. So this is one of the elements that are by right that I wanted to clarify. What we're seeing here is the bicycle shelter with this kind of concealed gate. And then the zoning regulations require us to have no more than 3 foot at the property line. One of the things about this corner that Michelle will get into is that we want to prevent people from loitering or the appearance of loitering. We absolutely have ample space for the residents inside, but we don't want to create areas which could be perceived as a nuisance. So we do have a double layer fencing. There'll be dense planting between the 3 foot fence and then the 6 foot fence, which is stepped back 5 feet from the property line. The other thing that we want to make sure we're compliant with is the lighting, which the zoning ordinance requires to be less than 1 foot candles at the property line. Okay, so enough about the fun stuff. We want to point out that, again, that we're in the transit-oriented development zone. The allowed height in this area is 70 feet. We're well below that. We're almost a full story below it. We measure right around 58 feet. You know, we appreciate the leeway to build in this zone. But we're not asking for any kind of height exemptions. We comply with all the transparency requirements, and this is one of the features that Michelle will talk about. We have ample windows on the ground floor so that there is our eyes on the street, and will be improvement from the current building, which is raised up off the ground quite a bit and offers no transparency from the street. Again, we mentioned that we have central parking on the lot across the way. The lot across the way is intended for shared parking between Crossroads staff, between residents, and it's 59 spaces. So a resident here, if they have a car, they'll be allowed to park on that lot. That opens up this garden, and you can see through here to the landscaping. One of the other things that we're far more than compliant with is canopy coverage. The tree canopy and planting coverage through the garden is actually more than enough for this site and that whole parking lot. So we're trying to do right by the whole zone here, even though that property has nothing to do with this application. Just wanted to point out that our landscape design by Adam Anderson, who's growing renown, is part of this. So we do have our engineers from Narragansett Engineering, Inc. Joe Mallow is here to answer any questions that you may have, but I'll just briefly say that asphalt is going from running right into the stormwater system, into a retention system, and the permeable vegetation is going to go a long way towards reducing our burden on the stormwater system. The permitting is through NBC. There has been a preliminary conversation. All the engineering is done. We're just waiting for some interchange between Providence Water and NBC, and that's why we ask for your patience deferral of our NBC permit until the final stage, as is customary with many requests. And then before we get to the comprehensive plan sections, I just want to point out that, like many of our developments, this is intended to be a zero energy building. The renewables will come from a contract with offsite solar, but it is a highly efficient envelope, ranging at 25% less than even the new stringent energy codes. It's all electric, no fossil fuels, low water use, and generally trying to be as sustainable as possible, not only from energy and carbon, but also economically, because all that money saved on energy usage actually helps this building succeed. So I'll just give you a couple of shots here of some of the character of the interior. Again, we put a lot of thought into the design of how this can help nurture the residents and be someplace that anybody would want to live. One of the things that is maybe not apparent in this being an apartment building is intended for affordable housing stock. Crossroads is one of the only, if not the only developer to develop housing for this level of income, and Michelle, I'm sure we'll be able to talk about that more. The green aspects are very prominent in the current comprehensive plan, and I know that you're all going to be going through a lot of conversations on updating that section. I did mention the proximity to transit, but it's also very proximate to a lot of the stores that are further down the way towards Kennedy Square. There's very convenient access to downtown. So in terms of access to schools, to hospitals, to the medical district, this is really perfectly positioned to enable residents to be close to a lot of things. So unless I've skipped anything, I'm happy to answer questions. I'm going to let Michelle Wilcox talk about. I did. Just did. Okay, I'll take it back. Thank you. Hi, I'm Michelle Wilcox, I'm president of Crossroads Rhode Island. And I'll just share with you a little bit about Crossroads. We're an organization, nonprofit organization, headquartered here in Providence, but we have locations throughout the state. We provide housing and supportive services, shelter programs, education and job training programs for people experiencing homelessness. Crossroads owns and manages and operates about 375 units of housing apartments throughout the state. We have a development in North Kingstown called Kingstown Crossings. It's 104 units of housing. We have property in West Warwick, obviously here in Providence and elsewhere. Crossroads operates under a philosophy of housing first, which means that the only solution to homelessness is housing. And for people experiencing homelessness, while they may be dealing with other challenges, besides their lack of housing, they're in a much better position to address those other challenges and difficulties if they have a home to do it from. And so we have been working for many years now to provide safe, affordable housing for the people that we serve throughout the state. This particular project is going to be first of its kind in the state, in so much as the population that will be targeted to live at 371 Pine Street are people who have experienced homelessness, who also have medical vulnerabilities or medical needs. This is not a healthcare facility, it's not an assisted living, but it is permanent housing for folks who have medical needs where they may be frequent users of the emergency department, they may be high utilizers of other medical services, and having permanent supportive housing with on-site supportive services provided by Crossroads staff, as well as other organizations that we partner with, is really critical. But the apartments, as Christine described, are regular apartments. They are all being built to type A ADA accessibility, again, recognizing the population that we intend to serve. I'd like to just talk for a minute about the community engagement that Crossroads has been involved in with regard to this project. We started having conversations about our plans for this property back in 2020. We acquired 371 Pine Street in late 2020 using CARES Act COVID relief funds. Our intention, while it is currently being used as COVID overflow shelter, our intention was from the beginning to convert this building into permanent housing. So starting in 2020, we've had a series of meetings and engagements and outreach to the neighbors and the community around us. We held several, quite a number of virtual information sessions with the South Providence Neighborhood Association, with the Trinity Square Together organization. We've had in-person meetings with many stakeholders, neighbors and others interested in the project. We held an open house recently where we invited a much broader community to talk about the project. We've established a website that's 371pinestreet.org, where the plans and information and frequently asked questions are available. And so we've really tried our best to communicate and to be responsive to questions that may arise and letting folks know about the project. As a result of some of the feedback we've heard from others, we've made a number of design, as Christine described, some of the design of the building, but we also have created a new position within Crossroads Rhode Island, a community engagement position that was newly created as a result of some of the feedback we heard from neighbors about how they interact with our organization. Lastly, I would just want to point out there are certainly concerns about safety of the residents and the people that we serve. And so we've taken, and the community, of course, and we take that very seriously. There was a lot of thought that went into the design of the building to ensure the greatest amount of safety for everyone associated with the project. So beginning with the visibility from the ground floor, from the office area, and the community space, the wraparound windows enabling our staff who will be in the building 24/7 to have those lines of sight. It really, the building does not provide a space where folks can loiter out in front. The private courtyard, again, which is reserved for residents and their guests only, that beautiful courtyard space fenced and with the vegetation that Christine described. That fence is 6 feet high, so it's not climbable. And it really creates an oasis for residents, but also a safe place for them to be. All of the units will have intercoms enabling staff to communicate with residents and residents with staff. As I said, the building will be staffed by Crossroads employees 24/7. And we will have a pretty robust video surveillance, both inside and outside the building, and all around the perimeter. So lots of attention being paid, as well as our efforts to engage with the neighbors and others in the community who are interested in the project. I think that's all the comments I had. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Questions?
Okay. Couple to kick it off. The 3-foot fence in the front, followed by the 6-foot fence in the back. I assume that's a solid panel fence of some sort.
Yeah, and you can see an earlier design in the rendering, and it's really intended to be mostly opaque, and this is provided inside. It's really meant to give, so we can see that in the lower right-hand character, what we've done is added a 3-foot fence and some very dense plantings. So it's mostly, you won't be able to see through, we won't be able to interact. The residents on the inside will have a great deal of privacy, and it won't feel like the residents in that courtyard are part of that streetscape. It's a very private, concealed garden. And then the only access to that garden is really through the locked bike gate, which will have special access, and then through the lobby, through staff, through check-in. So people will not be able to just wander into there either.
Okay. You spoke a little bit about the administrative offices or the offices on the first floor. Are they all Crossroad offices? You said there's a smaller leased space. Would that be for an outside tenant potentially?
Yes. We intend to have partner organizations who are also providing services to our residents and lease this office space. There's about 2,500 square feet of space that we intend to lease.
Okay.
And we're talking with a couple of different organizations right now about possibly leasing that space.
Okay. So this is not transitory housing. These are apartments.
Permanent housing. Every
They will have
resident will have a lease.
leases.
They will pay rent. Yes.
All right. You mentioned that and there will be 24/7 staff there, you say. In the
Yes.
first floor. Okay. You said you spoke of a couple of neighborhood meetings. What was the general reception from the neighborhood organizations?
So I think Generally speaking, it was very positive response. We had a number of folks asking about, ability to apply to live in this housing. There is a small group of people who are concerned about additional housing for people experiencing homelessness in this neighborhood.
Understandable. And then to Christine, the only state approval you require that you need the requested delay on is the NBC approval.
I believe that's true, and our engineer, yeah, he's nodding, so yes.
Okay, perfect. Commissioners, what other questions do you have for the applicant?
I had a couple of questions. The lease space that our chair just referred to. If you say you're in conversations with some partners, if that doesn't come to fruition, are you gonna hold it and limit it to only people servicing your residents, or is it open, potentially be open to other types of uses?
It certainly would be, and the folks that we're talking with are not limited to serving our clients.
Hang on one second. I apologize. I think we have a battery issue with that microphone, and since we're doing this a hybrid meeting, we need to make sure people at home can hear your response.
That was my, late.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it was? All right, hold on.
Well, then
Well.
but the microphone just kicked out at the same time, so it might be a coincidence. We just have to make sure the folks at home can hear everything you're saying as well. Or in their office, wherever they're viewing this. Success. All right, I apologize for that interruption.
No problem. So the office space is intended, it could be leased by any tenant. It's not, it's not specific necessarily to the residents that we serve. However, we're hoping that there is, that the tenants will be use behavioral or other kind of healthcare use, but there's absolutely nothing that would require that.
A couple of more other questions. The 24/7 staffing, how does that compare to your other facilities? Are your other facilities not 24/7?
So it's a mixture. Our facilities that are strictly housing, so single family or multifamily homes, obviously there's not staff there. Our property in North Kingstown Crossings, it's 104 apartments for families and individuals. We don't have 24-hour staff there. But this facility, because again, it will have sort of the office space, it's a little bit different. And so overnight staffing is intended to be, reception or security, sort of, I would refer to it as reception desks, secure staffing. During the day, Monday through Friday, there will be a significant presence of Crossroads, both our property management and leasing staff, as well as case management staff.
So it would, it's like, and I guess I should have limited to your larger buildings. So the buildings that you have in this area, which is what, Broad Street and the new one, it's gonna be pretty similar staffing 24/7, just like those, right?
Yes.
Great, okay. So I think you said there was just a small minority of residents that were concerned about the concentration of services in the area.
Yes, I would, all the people that we've spoken with and engaged with for our community engagement, there is a subset, but I would not call it the majority.
And did any of, you mentioned SPNA, Trinity Square Together, you mentioned other broader community meeting, have you gotten support, official support from any of these organizations?
Yes, certainly.
That's recommended, I guess, that you acquire and provide these services in this building? Like,
Did you say that again?
So, because we get obviously letters and stuff from different organizations, so I'm asking, did any organization give their official support of this project?
Yes, I believe there were 3 letters that were submitted to the commission in support of this project.
Right, but any of the neighborhood, because those weren't neighborhood organizations, so any of the neighborhood organizations that provided support?
I believe the Open Doors is a neighborhood, or it is a neighborhood organization, and
But no neighborhood associations.
no,
Okay.
not the neighborhood association.
All right,
There are none against that that I'm aware of.
okay, and then my last question is, your organization is pretty much doubling their footprint in this area, so it's intensifying these type of uses and services. And I know there's been concerns in the past about that. What are your thoughts in terms of how you're gonna be able to manage this? When you're, again, doubling the footprint of your current services there, and there's been, reported alleged issues.
So I think, as I said previously, the services that Crossroads currently provides at our headquarters at 160 Broad Street, many of the people we serve there are experiencing homelessness or are in emergency shelter. This expansion is housing, and that's a very different experience for the people who are living there. Having your own apartment, having your own living room, kitchen, bathroom, really changes the way you interact with your neighborhood and with your neighbors. And so it is entirely appropriate and correct, I think, for Crossroads to be expanding our housing footprint, because that is the solution to homelessness. And the folks that we serve and that will live in this apartment building, this is their neighborhood. They live there, they engage in community there, they frequent the businesses there. And so we feel very positively, and I think it's an important thing to do to provide this new safe, decent, affordable housing for the folks that we serve.
Thank you. Will, Noel, do you have any other? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, just at the 160 Broad Street, the tower is not, that building has 176 rooms that don't have any, private space in terms of bathrooms, kitchen, living room. Our Summer Street project is intended to address that. The Summer Street project, which previously came before this board, will provide every resident living in one of those, 9 by 10 rooms, an apartment of their own. And when that Summer Street project is complete, again, permanent housing, this is not shelter, it's not temporary or transitional. We will be able to renovate the tower and again, create apartments, which is a very different living experience for people than living in a room with a congregate bathroom and no kitchen or living spaces.
Regarding leasing, do you believe that these units will be filled? Are they kind of earmarked already for people that you have in mind, or will it go out to have a public leasing process?
So there's 2 things likely to happen. One is Crossroads currently has partnerships with United Healthcare and Lifespan, where we house clients of those or individuals that receive services from those organizations. So we expect that some of these units will be those similar partnerships. And then some of them, perhaps half, will be residents or applicants through the state's coordinated entry system, which is a single front door for people experiencing homelessness to get prioritized for housing. So it'll be a mixture.
Noel, anything else?
So the only thought that comes to mind is in the other development as well, everything seems to be single room, single bedroom or studio. Do you all do any family?
We do, yes, we have quite a lot of family housing, and the most recent project we finished in Providence was 30 units of family housing, scattered throughout the city. We have family housing in North Kingstown development I mentioned and elsewhere. So we provide different sizes and types of housing depending on the needs of the individual population that we're serving and the community that.
Just a point of clarification, you had mentioned that a lot of the people who are gonna be serviced here are neighbors already, but since everyone from 160 is going to Summer Street, and you're also consulting with partner organizations to supply their list of folks who might be on a waiting list, it's reasonable to expect that they may be from neighbor, but they're also gonna be coming from other parts of the city and or state.
Yeah, so let's just make sure we keep focused on the project at hand, because we're not talking about the tower or the previously approved project.
Right, but I'm talking about the project at hand. I thought you, that you said that they were coming from the neighborhood. So since the people that they currently service in the area are going elsewhere, then this would suggest that this is gonna be new residents from other places.
We serve, in addition to the folks in the tower and, we serve, there are other people served at Crossroads, than other than the tower residents. On any given day, there are probably 350 to 400 people who access services through Crossroads. There are the 38 people currently receiving shelter in the 371 Pine Street building, as well as our women's shelter located at 160 Broad Street that has 41 beds. So there are many individuals that may be eligible and appropriate for this housing that's built that are current residents or neighbors within this neighborhood.
Not to speak for the applicant, but I believe the intention of that phrase was, these will be leases, so they will be a part of the community, they'll be living there and residents, as opposed to emergency shelter operations like the other projects that we're talking about. So they will be new residents, even if they're not residents now. I think that was one of the points I think that was trying to be made.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? Okay. With that, I guess we'll hear the staff report.
We'd like to have the exhibits online, or I can always bring them back if you need them, but otherwise.
No, you can stop sharing. We have all the exhibits here, and if we need you back for more questions, we know where to find you.
Thank you.
Or thanks, Mr. Chair. And starting off with conformance with the comprehensive plan, we found that this project is very suited for its location, given its location under the TOD overlay, and also given that it's located in an area where multifamily development is encouraged, as it's in the neighborhood commercial mixed-use development land use designation. The development will conform to objectives H2, H3, and H4 of the plan, which support creating of new and affordable housing, and also objective B3, which promotes compact urban development. And also the elimination of parking due to the TOD overlay and reliance on bicycles conforms to objectives M2, M3, and M4 of the plan, which promotes use of alternative transportation, including biking, transit, and walking. And as discussed, this multifamily housing is in conformance and is permitted by right in the C2 zone and encouraged under the TOD overlay. The applicant's gone through the dimension and design requirements, and we find that they comply with the ordinance. And also addition of landscaping and common open space will be a positive and enhance the site's character. The applicant will meet the bicycle parking requirements. We don't foresee a negative environmental impact. For the applicant, the building will be a high efficiency development. This is a buildable lot. We don't foresee any constraints to development. And finally, street access will be provided from Pine and Stewart Streets. So based on that, we would recommend that you approve the plan, but first we recommend that you take action on the waiver from the requested waiver from submission of state approvals. And we ask that you grant that, finding that it would be. It would help the applicant to proceed with the development process. And also, after that, we recommend that you vote to combine master and preliminary plan approval, subject to waiving that. The requirements for submission of state approvals. Finding that the applicant has submitted all the items required for both stages. And based on that, we would recommend that you approve the master and preliminary plan subject to these conditions. That the landscaping plan be subject to the city forester's approval. The drainage plan be subject to the city engineer's review. The applicant submit any required encroachment permits with the building permit application. And finally, that encroachment permits with the building permit application. And finally, we ask that final plan approval be delegated to our DPD staff.
Okay, thank you, Troyan. Again, I'd like to reiterate our time limit before we call anyone up for public comment on this. In addition, we've received 3 letters in advance of this meeting on this agenda item. All 3 were in support of the project. Providence Housing Authority, Rhode Island Public Health Institute, and an individual named Monica Huertas, all submitted letters of support for this project. So if you're joining us virtually, please raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you after we call on the individuals here in attendance in our meeting space. If you'd like to talk again, it's your virtual hand in the middle bottom portion of your screen, or press *9 if you're calling in. So for the individuals here in attendance, we'll start out with David Sylvia. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, and then make any comments that you have on this agenda item.
Hi, my name is David Sylvia, 162 Broad Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903.
Thank you.
And it looks like the project that they're trying to get off the ground, get going, is something that I would really look forward to being a part of, because I've been at Crossroads since 2016. And it's just improving my life, improving the way of life for me, but it's just taking a little bit of time. I can understand that. And I would love to just be a part of that. And I would just like to see it happen, see me changing. It's something I'm really looking forward to. And it looks, from what I can see, it looks like they're off to a good start. And I was listening to Ms. Christine West, and she really, she's hitting all the answers right on the head. And I like that. I want to be a part of it. And
Thank you, sir.
all the everything that goes with it, I can deal with.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comment. The next individual here in attendance, Dennis Darling. We can always bring the mic to you if that's easier.
Okay, I'll bring it.
Okay. Again, please just state your name and address for the record, please.
Dennis Darling, 162 Broad Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903.
Thank you.
And I think this 371 project would be awesome and should go through also. As a blind person, and I spent 2 years homeless on the streets. I've been at Crossroads since 2021. And it's helped me a great deal, and this new project would even help me even more with the 24-hour staffing, the medical staff. And everything else that they have going on.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to comment on this agenda item. On deck, it looks like Christian Roseland. Again, just state your name, address.
Thank you. My name is Christian Roseland. Thank you, members of the commission, for hearing my testimony. I live at 842 Hope Street, Providence.
Thank you.
I'm here to support this project. There are a number of nations around the world that recognize housing as a human right. Unfortunately, the United States is not among them. And we have a human rights crisis with our homelessness rate. This is being made worse by the housing crisis. We have simply not built enough units of housing for our population. And we have increasing numbers of homeless, and we also have an increasing number of people who are paying a disproportionate share of their income in rent and other housing related costs. I strongly support this project because it will address this on two fronts. One, by simply making more units available, because we simply need more units in the city of Providence, but also by providing units for those who are most vulnerable and most in danger of experiencing homelessness. I generally support more dense development in the city, and I generally support mixed use, and I think that this project checks all the boxes. So I strongly urge you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next individual we have on our sign-up sheet is Matthew. I'm going to mispronounce your last name. Schmeling. I'm always sensitive to that because people mispronounce my name all the time.
No worries. Good evening. My name is Matthew Schelling. My address is 372 Lloyd Avenue. I am also here to support this development. Providence and Rhode Island is in a housing crisis, and we need to have more housing production. Like I said, both on the affordable front and on the market rate front. And for me, just recently, really recognizing the affordable housing crisis, I was helping a good friend of mine from my local church that I attend. He's in his mid-50s. He lives here close to his daughter. He works here kind of downtown, just across the road from downtown. And he was looking for housing for a long time, couldn't find anything. And he eventually got placed into a place down in Warren, but now he rides his bike about, an hour back and forth just to make it to work every day, or takes the transit for a long time. So I think that the more housing that we can make for those who need it here in the area, including these affordable mixed-use developments, I'm absolutely in support. And so I encourage you to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. John Wren.
What's the last name?
WRENN.
Great pronunciation. My name is John Wren. I currently live at 29 Ogden Street. I don't think I can say my position much better than Christian can, but I'll say this is my first city planning commission meeting, and I have never felt so proud to be a Providence resident as I have in this presentation. They knocked it out of the park. This is the kind of place that I would love to live. If I could. I don't currently have a backyard, but man, this looks great. Vigorously support this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else here in the audience who didn't sign in who would like to speak on this matter? Then with that, we will move on to our virtual world. Are there any attendees? I apologize. I didn't see you come from behind like that. Attorney Conley.
I snuck up.
Like a spider.
Dylan Conley, on behalf of no one other than Dylan Conley, 82 Dexter Street, Providence, Rhode Island. I just want to echo the support and sentiment in this room. I've had a front stage look at the housing crisis personally where I live, which immediately faces the Francis Street Armory. To the work I do for our other clients, the work I do at the State House, trying to figure out how to build more housing. And projects like this are in desperate need, and I'm so thankful to the team for putting it together. And really fun to actually just sit here and be myself and say, build. Thank you.
Not often that someone from another agenda item comes and speaks. But we have another agenda item, but we'll take it. Is there anyone in our virtual world that would like to comment on this agenda item? Again, press *9 or raise your virtual hand if so. And seeing none. Looks like we can close the public comment portion of this agenda item. Well. We have a fully compliant land development project in front of us. Obviously, we are in a housing crisis. We need all types of housing. This is obviously a niche that is desperately in need. Yeah, I think it's a very good project. I'm very excited for them to kick it off.
My only question that came up when one of the people were speaking is it income restricted for the people who are gonna be living?
I believe it is, but we could ask the applicant back up to clarify the low income designation.
Yes. There will be a mixture of income restricted units. They would be restricted to people at or below 60% AMI, although we would expect that they would be significantly below that. The units that might be rented, leased through our partnership with other providers would not necessarily have those same income restrictions, but because they're people experiencing homelessness, we would anticipate that their incomes would be well below 60% AMI.
Do you know the proportion of the
Between those two groups,
well, the income restricted and the one people rent to others? Does she know the proportion of the mix?
we anticipate that half the units will be through a partner agency, and the other half would be through income restricted, deed restricted.
Thank you. So if we were moving this project forward, we would start with discussion on the waivers of state approvals, because that's the first matter that we have to consider on this agenda item. If we have more discussion, I'm happy to entertain more discussion as well.
That's a pretty typical waiver at this stage.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on that waiver?
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to make a motion.
Grant the waiver.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, go around. Noel,
Aye.
Will,
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
And I vote aye. The next one would be the combinations of stages. We should vote to. If someone so moves, we would be voting to approve the combination of master and preliminary plan, finding that all items for both stages have been submitted.
So moved.
Motion, I have a second. All right, Noel. Aye. Will.
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Now, finally, we will be voting on the master and the preliminary plan. Based on the discussion and the staff report, including the conditions listed in the staff report.
So moved.
Second. All right, Noel.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck. All right, with that, maybe we'll take a 5-minute recess before jumping into the next agenda item, just for a quick restroom break. And then we will jump into our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 5. So 5-minute break.
That's not as bad as.
Oh, okay. We may get this on the.
Yeah, that's where the gallery.
I'm working on it. I never want you to have the open.
It's strange, so I like the side.
Yes. I know.
I think I was a little bit more enthusiastic.
I don't know. I mean, it could go either way. Yeah. Where's our, but none for five? None for five, right? Where's the, do we have the sign?
Do you want it? Yeah, I haven't.
No, that's fine.
Just want to make sure.
Oh, no. Are you doing Branch Ave?
Yeah, so that's coming. Yeah. So there's where you.
That has to be sworn in, and my third is the last one, is there being-
No, because it's not zoning technically. We're not acting as unified, so it's dimensional adjustments. They're not,
Adjustment.
yeah. Yeah, they're not, it's not zoning relief.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Mike.
Okay. All right, we will call this meeting of the City Planning Commission back to order at 6:20, actually 6:21. So again, we are moving on to agenda item number 5, which we are turning into agenda item number 6. This is a major land development project, public hearing for case number 22-067 MA for 50 Branch Avenue. And we will, Robert, you were Choi on introducing this one.
I can do it.
Oh, no,
Or no,
Joanne's coming
Joanne's
back.
coming.
Sorry, Choi, I didn't mean to jump the gun there. I'm just excited to get this meeting back to order.
Not just you, all of us. All right, commissioners, and this is a project that most of you are familiar with. It is a storage space facility that has received master plan approval for you. And it is the site of the former elections building, and the applicant will be talking about the building's design and how they have incorporated and preserved that building into their facility. This will be a 5-story, about 73 feet tall storage space facility with about 1,399 units. And the applicant is back for preliminary plan approval after you granted a height adjustment, dimensional adjustment for parking, as well as a design waiver from the corner side yard build-to percentage requirement. And you will see in the applicant's presentation that they have made some changes to the building's design in response to your comments. So this being preliminary plan, they will be talking more about the technical aspects of the project, and they can take it away from there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Joseph Brennan on behalf of the applicant Trunk Space LLC. Thank you, Troyan and city staff. We've worked very closely with them throughout this process. They've been very helpful. We did receive master plan approval, as Troyan had mentioned, but just to quickly go over the project again for anybody who wasn't here for the previous meeting. The property is located at 50 Branch Avenue. It's home of the old elections building. And doing a lot of different design and engineering and cost analysis, and working closely again with the city to keep that front facade, which was important. We requested the design waiver for the building height and the stories, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to get the utilization out of the property that we need to for the self-storage use, which is an allowed use by the zoning ordinance in the zone. Then as such, the grading of the property, which slopes significantly down in the back, is what also kind of makes that sound a lot larger than it truly is. If you were to stand out on the front there, it wouldn't seem as monstrous of a structure as that 73 feet may seem on paper. The applicant has also asked for that design waiver for the parking spaces. They own a lot of self-storage throughout the nation, and based on their own calculations for their uses, they know that they don't need more than the 16 parking spaces. They actually put it at about 10, 11 to 12 at their own peak hours. But they know they can fit the 16, and we always want to do the best we can to meet the ordinance when we can. We also altered our plan from the last hearing to include additional loading spaces that the city had asked for. And as Troyan had mentioned, the facade and the elevations, we've worked closely with the city to now address those and to provide something that the board has asked for as well, with the facade and like the windows and what things will look like from the outside. With that, we are here for a preliminary plan review. I know that from the findings that need to be found in order to be granted is consistency. One, we do believe it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, as it would be conform to the objectives to encourage new development, to complement traditional character and the preservation of buildings. It's also compliant with zoning, with the use, and then those waivers that we requested that were granted. There will be no environmental impact because we're under an acre. We don't need any approvals from DEM for this. And we're working very closely with, obviously for stormwater management with the city engineer's office. It is a buildable lot already, and it has street access from 2 different streets. And there'll be entrance in the front and the back in case people were walking in through the front. With that being said, there's not really much more because it went into such an in-depth analysis at the master plan stage, but I will just hand it off to the engineers just to quickly talk about the changes they made to the outside elevation, since I know that that was important to the board.
Yes, Kristen Robbins, BL Companies, and the architect of record. So one of the main comments from our master plan approval was about that north and east facades. So not the ones facing the streets, but the backside and facing the highway. So both of those facades, in meeting with Choyan, we added additional glazing to add that additional like 10% up on the top floor where we think you're more visible. And then we also added some banding to the metal panel to break up that facade and give a little more interest to the architecture so that it's not just a big blank wall. So those are our main additions for both those 2 facades. We also did wrap the brick a little bit more at the corner from the street side to bring some of that material.
And over here, Suze King, also with the SUZ, KING, I'll see the top. So since we last met, we dove into the design a little bit further and did the grading, stormwater, and then utilities. So stormwater is pretty straightforward. It's less than an acre of a site, so we don't have to go through DEM. We've been coordinating with NBC and then also through the city office with the city engineer, and with typically having a covered parking, we go to the sewer system. However, with coordination through NBC, they prefer because it's open sides that they'd rather it go to storm drain, just because there may be a little bit residual precipitation or runoff that may come in from this side over here. So the stormwater, the roof drains down, there's a little bit of infiltration for water quality, and then it just all goes out to the existing system on Dryden Lane. Couple of catch basins under in the parking area, also going out to Dryden Lane. And then the utilities are all served off of this side as well. Nothing too exciting about those. They're all one of my few projects that the utilities are all there connecting to it. Generally, another comment that we had during master planning was coordination with the city forester. So we coordinated with him in order to get the right amount of trees to meet the canopy requirement. We'll be maintaining the existing street trees here, but then adding trees along the frontage here and along the street, and some vegetation, lower shrubberies. The shrubs are along here. So that has been coordinated with the city forester, and so we're now in we're meeting the requirement. We're slightly over, I believe. We think we need to have about 5,200 square feet of canopy coverage, and we're at about 5,400. So that's there.
Thank you.
No, that's it, Mr. Chairman. We're here to answer any questions the board may have.
Noel, you were
No, I
pretty adamant
appreciate
about
the
that
changes
glazing,
in the-
so.
Especially on the north side. Looks much better. Look more visually attractive. And appreciate the effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Hang on one second. So you, just to clarify, you don't have NBC approval as of today?
So we need, the next stage would be going for the sewer permit. And pulling that permit, so we can't.
Is that a local permit or a state permit?
Well, that's
That-
it.
Your
Local
sewer
road
permit is
construction.
Providence,
Yes.
so you have all approvals other than
Yeah, we
Providence
don't
specific
need
building
it. Yeah, it's only through Providence and then NBC. We don't need to go through DEM or DOT.
Okay.
No state permitting.
All right, great. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? All right, then let's hear the staff report.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Commissioners. You can see the development before you is the result of adjustments as well as waivers that you have granted. So based on our analysis, we do find that this project is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, given that it's located in an area for general commercial mixed-use development. And the development would be in conformance with objective DE2 and DE5 of the comprehensive plan, which encourage new development, and especially DE5, which encourages preservation of buildings that contribute to the urban fabric. The self-storage use is permitted by right in the C3 zone. Based on you having granted the dimensional and design, having granted the dimensional adjustments as well as the design waiver, the project is in conformance with the C3 zone. And you had granted a dimensional adjustment for parking. Based on that, the applicant is in conformance with the parking requirement, and the applicant will meet the landscaping requirement. You don't foresee negative environmental impact. This is a buildable lot, and adequate vehicular and pedestrian access will be provided from Branch Ave and Dryden Lane. So based on that, we recommend that you approve the preliminary plan subject to these conditions. That the drainage plan be subject to the city engineer's approval, that the landscaping plan be subject to the city forester's approval, and that final plan approval be delegated to DVD staff.
Okay, thank you. We will now open up public comment for this agenda item. We have no one on the sign-in sheet in person here, so if you do wish to comment on that, please raise your hand. And if you're joining us in the virtual world, again, please press *9 if you're calling in, or raise your virtual hand on the Zoom screen. And seeing none, with that, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. Well, commissioners. Noel, they did what you asked.
I know.
That doesn't happen every day.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, no questions on my end.
I think it's such time to put a motion forward. The recommendation of preliminary plan based on the foregoing discussion, testimony, and the conditions of the staff report.
Don't move.
Wonderful. We have a second?
Second.
All right. We'll go around. Noel? Aye. Will? Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck.
Thank you, Chairman and members, and thank you again, staff.
Thank you.
Or what should we go? How do we get them in the middle? Yeah.
Okay, after the presentation and then.
Or after some comment. Yeah, I think we're.
Okay.
We can move in.
All right. We're trying to decide whether we should take a break now, because we do have some food to eat, but let's just power through it and start this next agenda item. So with that, we will kick off agenda item number 7, which is a major land development project. It's a public hearing for case number 23-021 MA 269 Wickenden Street. I believe Attorney Conley is representing the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, Dylan. You have a stenographer?
I do not.
I'm requesting a continuance.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So, that I guess is the entirety of my presentation.
Okay, your request means that the time clock does not stop.
Time clock, yes, correct.
The time clock does stop
It does stop.
if it's at his request.
Oh, okay, so the time clock does stop.
You want to, I guess the question is continue until when?
Yeah, is there a date certain?
The next
Obviously.
regular meeting, I believe it's June 20.
You know what our agenda looks like for the next meeting?
We do, and we know that we have as usual, we have a full agenda. I mean, if he's not prepared to go forward, you could entertain that motion to continue to June 20th, and we'll see where we stand with it.
How it fits into the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I will just say that it is, things do back up, and we try to get items docketed, and we try to accommodate everybody, and it's hard to get everybody in the room at the same time to do this. So it's a shame that they're not ready to move forward.
Would, if we continue it to the next scheduled meeting in June and our agenda fills up, would you be amenable to pushing it out to July again?
I can discuss it with my client. I don't have them at the present, so I can't commit to changing the deadline out in June again. The situation that we're in this evening is a little bit unanticipated, but it's something that we are prepared to present in June and would like to present in June.
If I may, Mr. Chair, so we look very carefully at the timeframes within which you have to act. This application was certified complete on April 3rd, 2023. 90 days is your time frame to act. So that means that you would have to act by July 2nd, 2023. If we stop the clock now, that would extend the time frame for you to act by roughly another month.
30 days, yeah.
So if we came to June and you couldn't hear it, I mean, here's how I'm feeling about this. If we get to June, we have other people in the queue. We've told them that they're on in June. I think it would be unfair to bump them, given that, you guys are all here and ready to hear the project today. So I think it would be fair if we get to June and truly there's no space on the agenda, that we have the applicant request another continuance or agree to a stoppage of the clock, just because it's not your fault that we can't accommodate them in June.
So why not just push it to July now? That way the clock will start then, right? Because it'll stop until that point, and then, because not only are we here, but I'm assuming there's a lot of people here. I'm assuming they're here for this item as well.
There are.
If you push it to July, you would have to get the consent of the applicant for the clock to stop until the July hearing.
So they basically have to request it.
Correct. And right now they're requesting it to the June regular meeting.
Right, but it's running a full meeting, and I don't recall who now, but I know there was some call it a complaint, for lack of a better term, of having these very packed meetings where people come to the meeting, have to wait their turn, and I would hate to put any, especially the public, in that position. So if it's okay, I guess, to the chair, if we can ask the applicant to agree to the July meeting.
The issue is we don't know what's going to come on the July agenda also.
Oh, but this will be out. Right.
Well, what I could say is that I'll say two things about July. Number one, I'm not going to be here. Number two is that if there were to be a request to continue to July, we could accommodate this. We know we could accommodate it in July.
Okay.
I'm just looking, I can tell you our June meeting. We have a zoning change, we have development plan review for a secondary school. We have a zoning change that would bar self-storage in the city. We have a zoning change for a small lot. We have a minor subdivision, and we have a land development project with unified development review. That's what we have in the queue for June.
So I would suggest if it's okay with the chair to ask the applicant to accept coming back in July, and also if we can designate it to be the first item on the agenda, out of respect for the people that have shown up today, and I'm not gonna be able to testify.
If I may respond to that, so I know that we are here requesting the continuance. The continuance is driven from unforeseen circumstances that aren't really within our control, or something that my applicant or my client has really anything to do with. We were ready and able to present a month ago. We were unable to go forward at that point in time because of scenarios and the situation which arose, which was again not related to my client, my applicant. I do not have the authority to do anything other than agree to stopping the clock until the June meeting. I can't get that authority this evening. So I can, if you do continue it out further than that, I do not have the authority to continue the clock out further than that. By agreement. I see no reason why we wouldn't be able to go forward in June. I thought tonight might go until 10 o'clock. It's about 7:15, so I was off by 3 hours. With apologies to everyone here, this is a circumstance which we do not have control over, and that's why we're requesting to continue it. This is not something that we wanted to do. We very much, for our own timelines and financial considerations, wish that we went forward in May, in April, now again in May. We just missed the March deadline by really a queue phenomenon. Our original submittal, I think, was back in February. So we have no objection to the city's time tracking on when the deadline is. We have no objection to continuing to pausing the clock between now and the June meeting. But tonight, I only have the authority to pause the clock for that 1 month.
So what options does that give us to deny their request for continuance will happen in that case?
No, so what he's saying is that he's agreeing to move out the clock for 30 days, which will allow us to hear it in July based on the time clock, as I understand it now. But if something happens and it goes into 2 meetings, the project would be approved without us finishing the hearing because the time clock would have expired.
Okay, so we'll stop for 30 days. So instead of July 3rd, we have that by August 3rd, which gives us time to respond in July.
It does, but I mean, you know, you'd be, if you couldn't get the applicant's consent for the additional 30 days, then it does put you at a little bit more of a time crunch. And you know, there's always the possibility of a special meeting if you need to. So you could have, let's say you couldn't hear this in June simply because, you know, all the projects that are currently in the queue are staying in the queue, and there's no room, and we want to be fair to them. You could get to June. This will be on the, if you continue it to June, this will be on the agenda. And you could continue it out to July, or you could continue it to a special meeting before July. Like I said, I'm not here on the 18th. You know, not that you need me necessarily, but
so what am I now? I thought you said it, because he can agree to 30 days now, and says he
Yes.
already do that.
yes,
So if we do that, that gives us to August 3rd.
correct.
So the only issue we would have is if, for whatever reason, let's say we have quorum in July, then we will be in
Yeah.
trouble with the timeline.
You would, yeah. I mean, once that clock starts ticking again, then it works to your disadvantage. You have that much less time to consider it.
I think our best bet at this stage is to continue it for 30 days. The clock is stopped. And then we can take it up again at the beginning of the next meeting to see if the applicant will be ready to present. And that way we're not wasting anyone's time. They're coming here from elsewhere. And if we have a full agenda and it looks like we're going to need to schedule a special meeting, we could do so at that time as well. Is that?
And another thing that we could do for the benefit of the public and you know, I'm frustrated that, you know, people come out for these meetings, they wait, and then, you know, yet again, there's another continuance. What we can do is when we post the agenda, if we know that there's enough space for this item to be heard in June, let's say a couple of these items can drop off either because we ask them and they agree or because they're not ready. We'll post on, we'll say on the agenda that it will be heard, or contrary, we'll say on the agenda that staff will be recommending that this item be continued until July. So at least people will know whether it's going to be heard or not at the June meeting.
And again, just for the edification of the public that's here, if you're not familiar with the process, as Bob mentioned, an application is considered complete. And then there is a time when we have to render a decision. That is a statute that we have to follow. Otherwise, the project is assumed approved without having a hearing if we miss our time clock. So that's why we're so conscious of the time clock and how that works, because we want to make sure that all projects get heard within that time frame. We never want that time clock to expire. Hang on one second. So I guess with that, my recommendation would be just to continue it out till the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is June 20th, 2023. And again, we will be communicating out any changes that we foresee. The agenda is very fluid until we set the agenda, so there may be projects that fall off and we may have plenty of time to hear this item. It may not be an issue. But I do worry about scheduling it for the July meeting and something happening. We have 4 people here tonight. That is our minimum quorum. And yeah, it's the summer. I would never want to have, since I've been on the board, we've never had an application run out the time clock. I don't want that to happen on my watch for sure.
And a special meeting would be possible.
Special meeting is still possible. Yes, correct. So if we have an abundance of items, we will probably, like Bob mentioned, we could note on the agenda that we will be recommending that the item is continued. We could schedule 2 meetings. We could have it on the next regular meeting, or we could schedule a special meeting before our next regular meeting, and then again, our next regular, or another special meeting after if we have to continue it again. Okay. There are many options to make sure we fit this agenda item into the time clock.
And to Miguel's point, we would be happy to put this at the beginning of the agenda. You know, to be deferential to the folks who have come out a couple times and not to have to make them wait again.
We entertain the motion.
What happens if they're not there again next time? Same thing.
This isn't the public comment portion, but if they're not prepared next time.
We're also not putting a public.
You have the discretion to continue or not.
Yeah, we can't really hear an item without the applicant being ready to hear.
And then so then it would just.
No. If the applicant is not ready again, they would be requesting another continuance. The time clock would stop again for another 30 days. So no, there's no situation where I could see where the applicant. I don't see the time clock expiring in this scenario because we would make sure of it. All right, so
Yes.
it's unorthodox, but I'll allow it.
they have an application that's pending in front of the commission. They have an obligation to present to the commission. I think there's gonna be a point at which the commission may simply decide to reject the request for a continuance and deny the project because there's been no evidence put on the record, and at that point, they would have to reapply.
It is very much not our goal, desire, or intention. We very much want to present this in June and have it voted on the merits, full public hearing. The reason we are unable to go forward this evening is something that is well beyond our control. We would have much preferred to go forward in March, April, and of course, May. So the fourth time may be the charm.
So I guess with that, the applicant has requested a 30-day extension. If we vote on this, we have to vote date specific to June 20th meeting.
Make a motion that we extend the application to June 20th meeting.
Second.
Before we take a vote on that, I just want to make sure that we'll get something in writing from the applicant right after this meeting.
Yes.
We agree to the box.
Please do that.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we'll go around and take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Will, Miguel,
Aye.
and I vote aye. All right, with that, that was the last agenda item. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn.
and a second. Second. All right, meeting adjourned.
Okay. And don't leave before you get your sandwiches.
Yeah, we have lunch.
We have more people coming on.
Yes.
Yes, the mayor has two appointments. No, one appointment. We have, he's the mayor's designee. He took your spot.
Yeah.
So we have five members now. We have, so the mayor has to make two appointments right now. My understanding is that one is very close and the other, there's a name out there.
Nicole is still.
Nicole is still on.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was.
So there's five.
But
We
we
need
knew
to,
Nicole was not going to be available for this meeting last month.
So Harry, Christian.
Harry resigned.
Chris was the council president's designee.
Under the last council.
And Noel is now the council president's designee.
Oh, so that's why Miguel doesn't show up.
Yeah, there's a little musical chairs going.
Yep.
Okay, what do we got? You wanna hand out, thank you for your service. You can take your sandwich. You can take your sandwich home.
Well, that was your first meeting, Will.
Yeah.
Congratulations.